Hello and welcome to News Central Television. I am Dakbo Adigboye. The top stories at this hour. Elders from Rivers State declare support for Governor Fubara amidst political crisis. Junta-run Burkina Faso, Mali and Niger finalize plans to form a confederation. 23 migrants missing for 2 weeks off Tunisia coast. Details after now. Let's begin by telling you that elders from Rivers State have declared support for Governor Fubara in his political supremacy battle with his predecessor. Now, the Minister of the Federal Capital Territory, Nyesom Wike, the elders urged Fubara to stand firm against Wike and deliver dividends of democracy to the Rivers people. The elders will include members of the Rivers State Elders Council, the convener of the Coalition of Rivers State Leaders of Thought, Sani Chukwumele, and a former national chairman of the People's Democratic Party, Prince Uche Secondus, said they would not allow the state to be plunged into avoidable crisis. The Elders Council, led by a former governor, that's Rufus Ada-George, has been vocal about the political crisis in the state. To discuss this, I'm joined by human rights lawyer Ekene Henry. Ekene, thank you for joining me. Let's get to it. I mean, a lot right now is happening in Rivers State, within the political space. We all know of the fallout between the current governor and his predecessor. And, by the day, we are beginning to see different matters unfold. I'd like to know your general reaction, particularly on the fact that the governor, the 24 lawmakers that, their seats have been declared vacant in the State House, and also their political fate.
Thank you for having me. Good evening. I think we've been on this matter, and it's clearly a provision of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria with what will happen to any legislator, whether in the National Assembly or a State House of Assembly, when such legislator defects or moves from the political party that sponsored that legislator to another political party without the justification that has already been explained by the Supreme Court in a number of matters. So I think that that situation that happened in Rivers State would just have to be interpreted in that direction, both as provided in the Constitution and as held by the Supreme Court. It is to that effect that when the matter was presented before the High Court of Rivers State, and then the court will just have to say, by the provision of the Constitution and then the decisions of the Supreme Court, and which, of course, are laws themselves by the principle of stare decisis, you just would not hold otherwise, that those seats are vacant. And recall that sometime in 2023, I think about in November or December, those seats had actually been declared vacant. So that remains the position. However, these gentlemen have remained in those positions, claiming to remain members of the Rivers House of Assembly. That's what actually led to those actions that have been in court. So my take to this is that while we profess the rule of law and then we act otherwise, I think it will be worrisome. So we should always uphold the rule of law, which is the provision of the Constitution and decisions of court. It doesn't matter who is involved. If you acted in a way that was probably injurious to you, I think you should hold yourself to some blame, really. I do not imagine the justification for that kind of defection at the time. As a matter of fact, they were members of all the same political party, of the political party in the House, one and just one political party, not even a case of being majority as if there was another. So I just didn't imagine why that decision to move from the political party that sponsored them to that office and into that house and then to another political party. So that's my view, and it's been my take on this matter since last year until now. It has not changed.
I mean, we are beginning to see the current governor being extremely vocal, on this particular issue. Before, one couldn't really place his political strength. But right now, we are beginning to see a governor who's speaking directly at the issues, speaking directly at the storm, and appears to be emboldened One of which, of course, is recent statements where he said he would probe the previous administration. In the previous administration, it was actually the accountant general. And many are asking, I mean, how fair would that probe, given the fact that, I mean, you were the accountant general. At some point, wouldn't it amount to you shooting yourself in the foot?
I think for me, it's rather a credit for a person who would say, examine my actions and activities while in power at any level or in any position. In this country, I think it should rather be a commendable step. That is to say, if I were a commissioner in an administration, and then I eventually become a governor, and then I think that there is reason for some inquiry into the activities of the previous administration, even if I served in it, and I was conscious of the fact that I was a commissioner in that administration, howbeit, I said, look, there is reason for us to examine and review and inquire. And let's put some issues about investigation, or rather, commission of inquiry, which actually is investigating, in context here. The purpose may be different from what people will conjecture and then think about probably prosecuting someone or finding fault in someone. What about the reason for probably getting a better direction as to how the current administration should run? I liken this to the constitutional responsibility of the legislature to carry out oversight. Sometimes people would think that the oversight function of the legislature is to probably find faults in the executive. No, but the purpose actually is to find areas of laws they have made for improvement. One of the primary objectives of legislative oversight is to see whether there are areas to provide more funding in the appropriation, or to even check what has been done with funds that have been provided in the previous appropriation law, or to even see areas where there will be need to improve in the laws. So the same way in the executive, if you establish, pursuant to the Rivers State Commission of Inquiries law, is to make some inquiries, some fact-finding. It's probably to also aid government to see where they could do better, or to see where things were done wrongly so that you don't commit the same errors, or perhaps to hold people to account and to answer to their responsibilities while in office, which is not bad. We have a situation in this country where you assume office and for 8 years, you don't even have a moment of coming to account to the people that you work for. I hold the view that politicians are actually servants to the people. That's the ideal situation. They are our employees. So from time to time, if I walk into my office, I ask my secretary, how was work yesterday?
But sorry, I mean, do you see a situation, should this probe, sail through? Do you see a situation whereby it will be free and fair, or just a political witch hunt, which at the end of the day maybe might just be used to sort of get back at someone, which of course seems to be the motive, of this whole drama?
It may not be. It may not be the motive. We wouldn't know the motive. We wouldn't just second guess or imagine what could be. The motive for a commission of inquiry is not witch hunting. So it means that if it is for witch hunting, or to just, if you like, to probably vilify someone, then it's not the objective of that law. So for me, analyzing a law, I will look at the intendment of the lawmaker, and the objective is really to make certain fundamental inquiries and find out facts for improvement of governance. So I will think, for me, I do not think that the purpose is to witch hunt any individual. And in this context where the current governor was even the accountant general in the previous administration, so if it is to witch hunt, there is to witch hunt himself. So I wouldn't be able to speak for government. I'm not a spokesperson for the government, and I do not know the primary motive and the actual intention of that commission of inquiry if it is set up. But I would rather imagine that pursuant to the law, it will be to find certain facts. Maybe there are things that are not clear. Perhaps there are some expenditures of government that are not certain. Perhaps there is need for improvement in certain areas. Perhaps there is even a need to establish the very viable decisions of government in the previous administration to consciously emulate those kind of decisions for improvement in governance. It's possible. So why would we think about witch hunting and politicians using instruments of law to attack their opponents or perceived opponents? That for me is an aberration. It's actually outside of what the law was actually enacted to really pursue, not to witch hunt any individual.
All right. Thank you for your time on the news, Ekene Henry. We appreciate.
Thank you for having me all the time. Always my pleasure.
All right. Now, moving on to other stories. The 2023 presidential candidate of the People's Democratic Party, Atiku Abubakar, says if in 2027 the party decides that it is the Southeast turn and selects Peter Obi as its candidate, it will readily offer his support. He also said a merger between the PDP and the Labour Party is possible. Atiku added that members of the party would decide his fate in the 2027 general polls. He also mentioned that his recent meeting with Obi might indicate a possible alliance leading up to the 2027 general elections. Last week, Obi held a private meeting with Atiku and some other People's Democratic Party leaders in Abuja. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has approved the appointment of 555 individuals as pro-chancellors and chairmen and also members of governing boards of 111 federal universities, polytechnics, and colleges of education. The list, endorsed by the Ministry of Education, appoints a chairperson and 4 members for each institution. An adversarial by the ministry, signed by the Permanent Secretary Didi Esther Walson-Jack, announced the inauguration and retreat of the governing councils on May 30th to 31st, 2024 at the National Universities Commission in Abuja. The Presidency confirmed the list originated from the Ministry of Education, having announced follows threats of a strike by the Academic Staff Union of Universities over delayed governing council appointments and dissatisfaction with salary increments. Education experts in Nigeria's federal capital have expressed worry over the lack of qualified and skilled special education teachers, including sufficient teaching aids for children and adults with special needs in the country. They say they can improve access to education of children with special needs. Now, News Central's Emmanuel Bagudu tells us more.
According to the Universal Declaration of Human Rights and Nigeria's national policy on education, the peculiarities of special needs students must be considered and taken as a priority to make them have unhindered access to education. However, this is not the case in Nigeria, as education experts say these needs are usually not considered.
So we have a lot of private schools who were able to create special needs centers. They are now practicing inclusive education in their schools. But when you go to the government institutions, you cannot see such.
Once the child starts heading to secondary school age and into adulthood, the child is just left unattended to. They are not learning how to live like community life. They are not learning how to, manage themselves, activities for daily living and all that, and even skill. My colleague and I will come across maybe nothing short of like 20 adults with special needs, and most of them are just left. I am telling you that. For example, there's one that we worked with a few months ago. He's 27. He doesn't know money.
They say despite the Child Rights Act being currently domesticated by 34 states of the Federation, including the Federal Capital Territory, the situation has not changed.
The impediment is in the implementation aspect of that law. Now, while it has been accepted, all over and celebrated, I haven't actually seen where it's implemented in the public schools, whether the primary or the secondary. Whether we've not seen them being more inclusive, more accessible. Are they getting all the free books, materials, and all of that? No.
The education experts say that the task to educate special needs children has continued to pose a big challenge to the teachers owing to the non-implementation of available laws and policies. Some of them gave recommendations on the way forward.
There's nobody to speak up for the child. You understand? And then the cycle continues and continues and continues that way. So honestly, it is a beautiful thing that we have enacted these laws, but there's no follow-up. Have you ever heard that a school or someone was prosecuted because he discriminated against someone with disability? No.
So therapy is to help them to reduce the symptoms and then help them to live their best lives to the best of their ability. You understand? So now, what they do in those adult homes is just to take them through life generally, to tell them that, okay, you can do this, you can learn to do this, you can learn to do that, and they are okay. So I think it's something we should adopt in Nigeria. Instead of just after primary education, after secondary education, you just leave them. You know, you just expose them to the society and they are just left unattended to. So that's one major thing that I think that we should adopt as a country.
The expert believe it is possible to end discrimination of persons with intellectual and physical disabilities. This, they say, is possible through continuous advocacy. In Abuja for News Central, I'm Emmanuel Bagudu.
We'll go on a quick break. When we return, we have more stories. Stay with us. The Human Rights Writers Association of Nigeria has called on anti-corruption agencies in the country to comply with the rule of law and Nigeria's constitutional provisions in its quest to rid the nation of graft. The association took to the headquarters of Nigeria's Economic and Financial Crimes Commission in Abuja, saying that disparaging Nigerians before they are proven guilty by a competent law of law is malicious and a proof that the commission is being used to fight proxy wars by the nation's political elite. Now, News Central's Amadine Uyi tells us more.
It was a peaceful protest at the headquarters of the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission in Abuja. The protest by the Human Rights Writers Association saw protesters call on the commission to prosecute its war against graft according to the nation's constitution and the EFCC Act.
We are here as a platform of Human Rights Writers Organization, Writers Association of Nigeria, to provide a guide so that we don't allow a certain pattern of lynch mob justice to continue in Nigeria, because this is a democracy that we are running. We are not running, I don't know how to call it, we're not running a government that is not properly organized. This is a government that is properly constituted and a government that is put in place by the people of Nigeria, who are the owners of the sovereignty of Nigeria.
The national coordinator of the association says that though it is fully in support of the war against corruption, this, however, should be done by the books.
The EFCC, ICPC, if they're not working well, there will be more poverty in Nigeria, there will be no employment, there will be insecurity. So fighting corruption is okay, but our concern is that when the bodies that are created to fight corruption are not being allowed to do their work statutorily the way the law has provided for, and they're being put under considerable pressure by politicians and other hirelings to mount pressure against certain individuals that they are having political differences with.
He also criticized the labeling of some Nigerians as corrupt by the anti-graft agency, including some serving in the current government without a conviction from a competent court of law. He urged politicians in Zamfara State to stop using the commission to fight proxy wars by misleading the public. In Abuja for News Central, I am Amadine Uyi.
The Nigerian government has announced its stoppage of the issuance of electricity regulatory autonomy to state governments as it commenced a review of the policy. Minister of Power Adebayo Adelabu, while speaking at the 8th edition of the Africa Energy Marketplace Conference in Abuja, said it appeared state governments and other stakeholders had no clear idea yet of what it takes to operate in the electricity market. The federal government had, in compliance with the amended Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria and the Electricity Act of 2023, issued an order to transfer regulatory oversight of the electricity market to Ondo, Ekiti, and Enugu states for the Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission to the State Electricity Regulatory Bureau. But Adelabu said there was now a need for a fresh look at the policy to enable states and other regulators understand what is required to operate an electricity market. Earlier on the news, business and social policy analyst Kenneth Ikemwa joined me on the news to unpack this.
supposed to speak for a majority of the Nigerian people, the citizenry and the populace, I would want to rate the power sector performance in this dispensation 1 out of 10. I think, let us be fair to say, they have just performed average. There's a lot of room for improvement, and as the conversation goes on, we can, pin down some pivots that will possibly be an advisory, generate some pieces of advice for the government on how we can move the sector and take it to the next level and make it a major catalyst for driving development and economic growth in Nigeria. As it stands, no. It's an average performance, and in fact, I will be able to say it's a below average performance as it stands currently.
The Minister of the Federal Capital Territory, Nyesom Wike, has revealed that the commissioning of several key infrastructural projects across the capital, marking 1 year in office of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, will commence on May the 27th. The minister made this known after a final inspection of the projects, saying the commissioning exercise will take a span of 9 days and will end on June the 16th. The exercise will include the commissioning of major road projects within the city center, including several bridges linking different districts to each other.
The final inspection we are doing as regards their preparedness for the inauguration of the various projects. By the approval of Mr. President, we believe that from 27th of this month, we shall start the inauguration of the various projects. And particularly on 27th, we believe the President will flag off the commercial operation of the metro line. We believe on Monday we'll do the final inspection of that. From what we have seen, I think we're good to go. We're ready for the commissioning for 27th of May, and it will be ending on the 6th of June.
In the meantime, Nigeria's federal government says it has designated the mining and jewelry sector as a key economic driver and aims to harness the potentials in the sector to boost the nation's economy. This was during an event in Abuja showcasing a vast array of gemstones, the work of newly trained jewelers trained by Ministry of Solid Mineral Development. Now, News Central's Joshua Marai has details.
In an effort to tap into Nigeria's abundant mineral resources and promote economic diversification, the Ministry of Solid Minerals Development, with support from the World Bank, has launched an initiative to empower a new generation of jewelers. The ministry, during the National Gemstone and Jewelry Show, showcased the work of newly trained jewelers, featuring a stunning array of gemstone and jewelry pieces, highlighting the intersection of these two vibrant industries. Stakeholders during the event called for policies aimed at harnessing the entire potential of the jewelry sector.
I think I feel well privileged to see quite a number of jewelers who are here. We hope at the end of the day and believe that we are going to upgrade the system to a better downstream engagement.
To our esteemed fathers and leaders in their various endeavors, education is no longer enough. We must develop policies that are skill-centered and sustainable to retain our position as the giant of Africa. The DG of NIMG stressed the need for an international annual event of this nature. We travel around the world for different gemstone exhibitions, and most of these gemstones actually come from Nigeria. It is now time for us to home it here in Nigeria.
Nigeria's Minister for Solid Minerals announced that government has designated the mining and jewelry sector as a key economic driver, aiming to harness the nation's mineral resources and boost economic growth.
Most people would not know or believe that this particular industry can flourish to that extent. And in fact, there's room for expansion to make more money. But the more important point that I want to make is that this sector, the solid mineral sector, is the next economic jugular of Nigeria.
The gemstone and jewelry industry has continued to grow. Industry insiders here say it has the potential to become a significant contributor to Nigeria's economy. They say providing training and capacity building for local jewelry designers, as well as fostering public-private collaboration, will drive growth and sustainability of the sector. In Abuja for News Central, I am Joshua Imarayi.
Farming is an age-long profession which is predominantly practiced by people in the rural areas, including those in southeast region of Nigeria. Several communities in Abia State are involved in farming activities, with their people seriously engaged during farming season, but lack the basic amenities that aid farming. In this special report, News Central's Chinwe Ugele visited Ubuaya Obi Ibere community, known for its farming activities in the Ikwano local government area of the state. A report.
For farming to be efficiently done, there must be basic facilities ranging from tractors, trucks, good roads, and other incentives that make farming seamless. Obuaya Obibere Autonomous Community in Ikwano local government area of Abia State is arguably the most endowed with vast and arable lands, part of which are used in cultivation of food and cash crops. From melon to cassava, this community has it all when it comes to food crops and also large deposits of firewood in all their lands. Piles of firewood adorn their road paths and farmlands, waiting for buyers to bring their vehicles to move them. This setback is also the reason the farmers do not attract the patronage they deserve and possibly sell their produce at cheaper costs.
We produce largely the garri you see in the whole Abia State. It comes out of this community, you see. But the problem we are facing, maybe I'm not going into that. The problem is the road you've just plied.
From the location of the farms to their popular Ndoro market, which functions every 4 days, the roads are nearly inaccessible and made only tricycles and motorcycles the only source of transportation connecting the farmers and the market in a throat-cutting cost. The government can render assistance to the farmers by constructing their major access road to reduce the high cost of transportation and by extension prices of food items and cash crops.
We try to talk about this fuel issue and the prices, try to make things to be reduced.
So the problem is that nobody is helping us. It takes us our life to transport our products.
Although people still travel from Umuahia, the state capital, and neighboring Akwa Ibom community to buy food items, it is no longer because of its affordability as was the case in the past, but for the freshness of the goods. Not even the garri and plantain, which are produced in large quantities here, cost less.
When they produce it, they went it to market, it's very cost. Now a cup of garri now, they are selling 2 cup or 3 cup, 500 naira.
I was at the Ministry of Agriculture in Abia State to see the Commissioner, Professor Monica Ironkwe, to know what plans government has for such a community to boost food production, but was told by the staff that she was out for a meeting, and 13 hours later, the Commissioner responded my message informing me she was out of town. The proposal or decision for a partnership with an Israeli firm by the Abia State government will only make sense when such a community is considered and explored for its agrarian endowments and exploits. In Umuahia for News Central, Chinwe Ugele.
Nigeria, Africa's most populous nation, faces significant challenges in providing clean cooking solutions to its citizens. Traditional cooking methods contribute to health issues and environmental degradation. Today, we explore how electricity can be the answer to these pressing issues.
In many parts of Nigeria, cooking is primarily done using firewood, charcoal, and kerosene. These methods are not only harmful to health, causing respiratory diseases and other illnesses, but also detrimental to the environment, contributing to deforestation and air pollution.
I don't subscribe entirely on clean energy. It's not clean energy. it's beneficial energy to the Western world, right? We can't transit from where we are almost overnight to where they want us to be, solar and all that. With the current cost of electricity, the new tariff, there's a more rapid transition to solar, to inverters and stuff like that.
However, the transition to electric cooking is not without challenges. Many rural areas in Nigeria still lack reliable access to electricity. Infrastructure development is critical to ensure that all Nigerians can benefit from clean cooking technologies.
It might be a bit premature for a conversation about clean anything right now. We need to solve our first problem, which is to ensure that the most amount of people have access to power so that we can be productive, grow our economy, then we can start having these conversations. But we need to have power to generate electricity, and that's currently our problem, right? That's why I didn't even talk about that. We need to get to a point where we're generating enough power all across the country, not just people that have money and they're charging in band A. We need to get a point where there are no more bands. Everybody has power.
Electric cooking holds the promise of a healthier, more sustainable future for Nigeria. But to realize this potential, concerted efforts from the government, private sector, and communities are essential to ensure that every Nigerian has access to clean and efficient cooking. In Lagos, for News Central, Bettina Nwili.
As part of efforts to address the effects of climate change, the Plateau State government is looking into the issues of illegal mining, afforestation, drainage, blocking, amongst others. This was disclosed by the State Commissioner for Environment, Peter Obi, during an event to commemorate this year's International Day of Climate Change, in partnership with the Center for Gospel Health and Development. News Central's Chizoba Anyanwe was there and has this report.
Unprecedented rainfall patterns, poor farm yields, devastating impact of climate change, among others, remain pointers of the effects of climate change and the need for all hands to be on deck if the world will experience a healthier environment. Records made available to News Central recently have it that 2024 has remained the hottest year in 20 years on the plateau, owing to the impact of climate change. Should frantic efforts be neglected in changing the narrative here, then attaining a healthy life for human beings will be a fight in futility.
The Plateau State government, through the ministry, has taken bold steps to address climate change through various initiatives. We are currently working on the domestication of the climate change policy, collaborating with CSOs and NGOs to mitigate the effects, like introducing improved seedlings, smart farming methods, introducing of some communities to eco-friendly cooking stoves, afforestation and reforestation of mining degraded lands, waste management, and so forth.
With the reality of climate change and its impact staring back at humanity, sensitization and community education remain very vital areas stakeholders need to engage in, and this cannot be overemphasized.
We'll be doing a lot of community engagement. We're going to have a town hall meeting with our stakeholders at the rural areas, targeting community structures such as the community development committees, the farmers groups, the community disaster and risks committees that we have formed and we are working with under AR2CC, which is the Enabling Resilience to Climate Change Related Risks through local CSOs project in Plateau State.
Noting the very minimal achievements recorded in the fight against effects of climate change globally, inaccessibility to funds and critical resources remain the major issues that need to be resolved in order to achieve success. In Just for News Central, Chizoba Anyanwe.
Coming up on the news, junta-run Burkina Faso, Mali and Niger have finalized plans to form a confederation. We have details of this and more after the break. The news continues in West Africa, where junta-run Burkina Faso, Mali and Niger have finalized plans to form a confederation after turning their backs to former colonial ruler France to seek closer ties with Russia. Now, their foreign ministers met on Friday in Niger's capital, Niamey, to agree on a text establishing the confederation of the Alliance of Sahel States. Niger's foreign minister, Bakri Yao Sangare, as he read the final statement last Friday, said the text would be adopted by the heads of state and the three countries at a summit without specifying the date. The three countries said late January they were quitting ECOWAS, which they said was under French influence, to create their own regional grouping. In the meantime, a Guinean opposition coalition on Saturday called on the ruling junta to organize elections for a return to civilian rule by the end of 2024, urging demonstrations to support the demand. The West African nation has been ruled by the military since a September 2021 coup, with junta-appointed Prime Minister Amadou Aure-Ba in March saying the military would not honor their commitment to hand over power to civilians by the end of the year. Aure-Ba last week justified the military's continued rule with the need to rebuild the country. The National Alliance for Alternation and Democracy, a coalition of parties and associations, urged the junta to respect the timeline for a return to civilian rule by December 31st, agreed under pressure from regional bloc ECOWAS. In East Africa, Sudan's paramilitary rapid support forces have announced their willingness to open safe passages out of the former haven city of El Fisha in Darfur, which has been gripped by fighting for weeks. El Fisha, the state capital of North Darfur and once a key hub for humanitarian aid, where many had gathered for shelter, had been in the grips of fighting as the RSF seeks to control it. The paramilitaries called on the residents of the region to avoid conflict areas and areas likely to be targeted by air forces and not to respond to malicious calls to mobilize residents and drag them into fires of war. According to United Nations, over a year conflict has killed as many as 15,000 persons in the West Darfur region, capital of El Guinea alone. In North Africa, Egypt's top court on Saturday removed names of ex-footballer star, that's Mohamed Aboutrika, and 1,500 others from terrorist list over their alleged links to the outlawed Muslim Brotherhood. Human rights lawyer Khalid Ali said the criminal court's ruling has been annulled and a new hearing will take place to re-examine the case. The lower court in Cairo decided to list him as a terrorist in January 2017, accusing him of helping to finance the Brotherhood, which was ruled by terrorist organization in 2013. He publicly backed the Muslim Brotherhood candidate in the 2012 presidential poll, and Mohamed Morsi subsequently became the first democratically elected president in the Arab world's most populous nation. Tunisia's National Guard says 23 persons trying to cross the Mediterranean to Europe from the country have been missing for the past 2 weeks. The National Guard, which oversees the North African country's Coast Guard, said searches were still underway after the group departed in early May. It said relatives of those missing only contacted the authorities 10 days after their departure in Nablus. Adding, it had arrested 5 persons allegedly involved in organizing the crossing. Tunisia is a key departure point for irregular migrants who risk perilous sea journeys hoping to reach Europe. According to the Tunisian Forum for Social and Economic Rights, more than 1,300 died or disappeared last year in shipwrecks. Nearly 10,000 persons have been forced to leave their homes in Ukraine's northeastern Kharkiv region since a ground attack launched by Russian forces on May 10th. Governor Oleg said a total of 9,907 persons have been evacuated. According to him, they were fleeing Russian soldiers who who managed to advance between 5 to 10 kilometers along the northeastern border. Of course, the governor added that Ukraine's armed forces had repelled two attempts to break through its defenses overnight. Moscow had been attacking several settlements, including Vovnish, just 5 kilometers from the border. Let's also tell you that Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky has warned that Russia's offensive in the Kharkiv region this month may only be a first wave, and Russian troops could aim for the city of Kharkiv. He said the situation in the region where Russia had seized several border villages was controlled, but not stabilized after Ukraine sent reinforcements. The president also said Russian troops had penetrated between 5 to 10 kilometers along the northeastern border before being stopped by Ukrainian troops.
Що ми розуміємо, що вони розраховують десь на 10-15 травня, може початок червня. Ось така була інформація. Приблизно, в принципі, так і сталося. Вони розпочали цю свою операцію. Вона може складатись просто з кількох хвилей. Тобто перша хвиля вона була, і там ситуація, те, що я вам сказав, контрольована після першої хвилі.
The chairman of the Dangote Group, Aliko Dangote, has said that the plans that the Dangote refinery is put in place, Nigeria will not need to import a premium motor spirit by next month. Dangote said that the refinery, which has already started supplying diesel and aviation fuel in Nigeria, has the capacity to meet the diesel and petrol needs of West Africa and the aviation fuel demand of the entire African continent. The richest man in Africa spoke as a panelist at the Africa CEO Forum annual summit in Kigali. Now, highlighting how far the oil company has come, Dangote expressed how they are focused in ensuring that the continent will depend less on importation in the nearest future. Let's wrap it up with some sporting details. Where coach of Nigeria's under-17 female national football team, the Flamingos, Bankole Oluwokere, says he is optimistic of victory against Burkina Faso in the return leg of the 2024 FIFA Under-17 Women's World Cup qualifying match. The Flamingos drew 1-1 with the Burkina Faso girls in the first leg match played in Bamako, Mali on May 11th. The coach says the Flamingos are ready to make the nation proud by winning the second leg match against Burkina Faso. The victory over the Burkinabés will set the Flamingos up for the final qualifying fixtures against the winner of the Senegal or Liberia match.
I want to encourage every Nigerian that have opportunity to come around to watch the match on Saturday on the 18th to come around. The ones that cannot come around due to their activities, maybe work or whatsoever, in their various on television or from the radio, I want them to support us, to reach out for us, to pray for us as well. And we are assuring them we will not disappoint them. We'll get it done, we'll win the match, and then bring joy to the face of our fellow Nigerians. So I really appreciate the support so far, so good. Even the Nigerian citizens around there in Mali, they were so supportive. They came out in numbers to come and give us that support. Also in Nigeria, I believe we are able to get more than that support, and we will not disappoint Nigeria.
Britain's Jonathan Broome Edwards made it 3 high jumps titles in a row at the Para-Athletic World Championship in Kobe. Broome Edwards, the 2019 World Gold medalist and Paralympic champion, shared gold at last year's World in Paris with Poland's Małgorzata Lepiato. In Japan, the 35-year-old's first-time clearance at the 2.04 meter was high enough for gold. Silver went to USA's former American football player Derek Losiendent, who lost the lower part of his leg in a train accident in 2019. And Wu cleared a 2.04 at the third time of asking for a new personal best. Lepiento, who failed 3 times at the 2.04, took bronze, and when Broome Edwards and Lucident could not clear 2.07, the title went to Broome Edwards on count back. And that's a wrap on the news at this time. But before we go, another look at some of our top stories. We told you that elders from Rivers State have declared support for Governor Fubara amidst political crisis. Junta-run Burkina Faso, Mali and Niger have finalized plans to form a confederation. We also told you that 23 migrants missing for 2 weeks off Tunisian coast. Don't forget, of course, to send in your eyewitness report to the WhatsApp number on the screen. You can also follow us on social media. We are at News Central TV. You can watch us live across these platforms. That's DSTV channel 422, Star Times channel 274, Avo TV, and YouTube. Many thanks for watching. I am Dakbo Adigboyi. Bye for now.